Hello everyone, you are here because you are going through the corrections for your WA2 structured question practice as well as your compare full scat paper. Alright, now, so before you continue on with this, please make sure you have these two materials in front of you. If you don't have it, pause it and go get it now. Now, I also want to remind you that this is not a Netflix video, meaning you shouldn't be watching this video while you're lying down on bed with your handphone. You should really be at your study desk or a table with your PLDs in front of you, and then your notes or your worksheets in front of you with your writing materials. Listening to this and doing the corrections at the same time. All right, so are you ready? If you are, let's start now. We will start with the WA2 structured question practice first. So the very first question, right? The very first question, figure 1 shows the global distribution of mangroves. So the word global distribution of mangroves. With reference to figure 1, describe where the mangroves can be found. So in this question, we had done it in previous practices with tropical rainforest. The general things we have to write about is general, specific, and examples. Now with the tropical rainforest, you had size, right? And the biggest and the smallest. But with the mangroves, it's difficult to write about size because it's hard to tell the size of a line, right? You're not going to measure it. So we can leave that out. We usually will talk about where they are the examples. So where are these mangrove forests found? So generally, they are found along the coastline. So you can see all these along the coastlines here, right? So I generally find along the coastlines, along the preferred word is coastlines, all right? Not shorelines, so coastlines. What about specifically? Specifically, they are found in between two straight lines, all right, within this area generally. Right, this area is called the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. So specifically, specific locations, they are between the Tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. And then some examples are, they are mainly found in Southeast Asia. So where is Southeast Asia? So just going to change the color here. So Southeast Asia over here, the coastlines of Africa, and the coastlines of Central America. Central is important. This word central is important. All right. So pause if you need to copy this. And if you're done, I'm moving on to the next question. Question number 2. Explain how enhanced greenhouse effect contributes to global warming. So you can listen to the explanation first, then pause the video to do the corrections. So whenever we look at geography questions, right, we want to look at important words. So the first important word here is the word explain. All right, explain. Enhanced greenhouse effect is the second important word. And the final important phrase or word is global warming. So firstly, explain, right? What do I want you to do when you explain something? So generally when you explain something, you are giving some reasons, you are explaining something in detail, right? So if Mr. Jeremy Chan asks you, explain why you are late, you don't just say I was late, full stop, end of story. No, right? You have to give some reasons and you have to tell him some stuff, explains why you are late in detail. So you might say like, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chan, I was late because I overslept, my alarm clock didn't ring, my handphone ran out of battery, I forgot to charge it in so it didn't ring. So you're explaining something in detail. So this is the same thing for this question. Explain, tell me about this enhanced greenhouse effect in detail. Tell me how it contributes to global warming in detail. So not just basic, simple information, but in detail. So this is 2 marks. So I guess I would put the first mark here, right? I would emphasize greenhouse effect as 1. And then the second one is about global warming, right? So I would say something like this. Enhanced greenhouse effect and global warming, right? So the first mark will be giving to explain enhanced greenhouse effect. I would say that enhanced greenhouse effect refers to the increase increase in greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, right? But if you give If you can give me some examples, it will be great. If you cannot, it's fine. The important thing is an increase in greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. All right, so that is explaining the enhanced greenhouse effect. Increase more greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Then after that, the second mark is, how does this lead to global warming? Tell me, explain how it leads to global warming. So the second mark, you're going to explain how this increase in greenhouse gases leads to global warming. And you might say something like, oh, more greenhouse gases can trap more heat. Just saying it's trapping more heat is not enough, because greenhouse effect is about reflecting this heat back to the earth, right? So trapping more heat, reflecting it back to the earth, leading to increase in global temperatures. All right, so also important to say increase in global temperatures. Why? Because increase in global temperatures is global warming. So you cannot just stop at trap more heat and reflecting it back to the surface. Full stop. No, you have to go on and say, oh, this causes an increase in global temperatures. And that is your 2 marks. So you can pause me now to copy this down if you need. And if you have copied this down, we can go to the third question. All right, the third question shows you a horizontal zonation of mangroves, and they want you to name the zonation A, B, and C. All right, and I guess a few points I want to take note, and you know it's just not just about the picture here, but there are some small little words at the bottom, right? So what are these little words at the bottom? Over here, they actually give you clues about where this zonation, what the zonation is. Right, so firstly, A is the coastal zone. Why is it the coastal zone? It's usually near the coast, and because of the word here, frequent flooding. When it's near the coast and it's near the seawater, there is frequent flooding. So that's the coastal zone. What about zone B? Zone B is the middle zone. It's right in between the middle zone. It's right in between the coastal zone and zone C, which is the inland zone. Why the inland zone? Because it's the furthest away from the coast, it's furthest away from coast A, and also because it said that it's infrequently flooded. So that's another clue that this is the inland zone. Most of you got this right. All right. So the next question. All right, the next question about question B, where you are asked to read the following descriptions and put a tick in the appropriate zone, zone A, zone B, or zone C. So A is the coastal zone, B is the middle zone, and C is the inland zone. And we need to see what description and whether which one is correct. So the first description is when is it flooded during low tide? So only the coastal zone is flooded during low tide. Middle zone and inland zone generally not flooded during low tide. Low tide is when the seawater is at its lowest point. All right. Now, is it flooded during high tide? So if it's flooded during high tide, all the first two zones, coastal zone and middle zone, is flooded during high tide. What is the longest period of flooding? Right, the longest period of flooding, again, is the coastal zone because it's flooded even during the low tide. So low tide, high tide, all kena flooded. So it is the longest period of flooding. And the next one, what is the lowest? All right, the lowest salinity level, meaning, what does lowest salinity level mean, right? The lowest salinity level means is the lowest amount of salt in the water. There's a that means if that's the case, right, then it's not flooded very often. So if it's not flooded very often, the only one place which is not flooded very often is zone C. The inland zone is furthest away from the seawater, so it's not flooded very often. But if it's flooded very often, it's the highest level of salinity, highest amount of salt in the water, and flooded very often, then it would be the coastal zone. Okay, so where do students make the most amount of mistakes? I think it's interpreting the descriptions. All right. So if you are okay with this, we can go on to C. Right, in C, they ask you to name the mangrove species in A, B, and C. All right, so I think A is the coastal zone, and this one you can find from your notes. Because, and then in the middle zones, you have rhizophyra, and in the inland zone, Bruguera. Right, so this is just memory work. Of course, it will help you, right, when you remember whether it's coastal, middle, inland. So, for example, Avicenna and Stona Russia, right, because it's constantly flooded, right? So definitely their roots will have the ability to exclude salt. That means when they take in water, right, they kind of like filter out all the salt, right? So it will help you to remember what kind of adaptation these mangroves have, if you can remember where they are. All right, question 3. In question 3, they show you the roots of a mangrove plant, and they want you to name the type of roots and describe how they adapt to the environment. So in geography, it's important to know the command words. So the first command word is name, right? What does name mean? Command word name means directly tell me what the name is, right? The next one is describe. Describe means what? Write about what something is like or where it is. So describe how it looks like, where it is. Okay, so let's go into answering the question now. Describe what? Describe how they adapt to environment, right? So first one, name. Name is called a knee bend root. So we're looking at the roots here. Let me change color. Obvious, more obvious. Wait. Okay, so we're talking about here, the knee bend roots in front. All right, and the next thing is you want to know how they describe, how they adapt to the environment, right? So the word describe how they adapt to the environment. Now, can you remember just now we said describe means tell me how it looks like? And then in this particular question, they also want to know how they adapt to the environment. So describe how the plants look like, the roots look like, and how they help the mangrove to live in the swampy environment. So what is a swampy environment like? A swampy environment has high salinity levels. The water there, you see the water has very high salt content, very salty. Generally, the mud is also very soft because it's constantly submerged in seawater. And the oxygen, the soil has very little levels of oxygen. So oxygen poor soil, lots of bacteria and very little oxygen. So that is a swampy environment. So for the next 2 marks, because this is a 3-mark question, for the next 2 marks, they want you to describe how the roots look like and how these roots can live in this swampy, help the plant to live in this swampy environment. Now, it's quite hard to describe how roots that filter out salt look like. So we will not focus on high salinity. It's 2 marks. So I choose my battles. I choose soft mud and I choose oxygen poor soil, because with these two, I can describe how the roots look like. All right, so I'm going to start with oxygen poor soil first. How does the root help the mangrove plant to live in this oxygen poor soil? So a reminder, describe how it looks like in green and how they help the mangrove to live in this swampy environment in purple. All right, so my first answer, aerial roots protrude above the soil and takes in oxygen directly from the air. Now, this is a description. In green is a description. It describes how an aerial look like. It says that it protrudes from the soil. So that's a description. Next, in purple, this helps them to survive in the oxygen poor soil, right? This is a description of how these aerial roots help the mangrove to live in the swampy environment. Okay, next. Roots bend upwards. Can you see that? Go upwards and then go downwards again, right? So bend upwards to emerge above the soil before bending downwards into the soil at regular intervals. Now this block here is a description of how the roots look like, going up and then coming down again, right? So when it goes up and emerges above the soil and come down again, that's how it looks like. Now, how does this help the mangrove to live in the swampy environment? It helps to anchor the plant into the soft, muddy soil. All right? So this is for your 2 marks. 2 marks, 2 description of how it looks like and how it helps the mangrove to live in the swampy environment. And this is the end of your WA2 structured practice question. Remember to review this because it your WA2 practice your WA2, right, is it will help you a lot in your WA2. Now, if you are done with this, we can go and take a look at your compare question. So which is your compare question? Right over here, the compare question. So go and get your compare foolscap paper and we will start in a short while. So in your compare foolscap paper question, the 2 questions, the main skill that you are required to learn or show me that you know is that are you able to compare? Are you able to compare 2 things and tell me the similarities as well as the differences point by point? Point by point. Remember we did the exercise with Mr. Jeremy Chan and Mr. Goh, and then we compared point by point where how similar they are or how different they are. So for example, spectacles, right? And then facial hair. And then you said there were some differences in, the shape of their faces, differences in their eyebrows, right? And then we said that you cannot talk all about Mr. Goh and then talk all about Mr. Chan because that is not a point-by-point comparison. You're just describing Mr. Goh and then describing Mr. Chan. All right. However, when you did this piece of work, so sad, the common mistake that most of you did was to write out all the TRF features. So you guys, describe all the TRF. And then after that, you describe all the mangrove. So there was no point-by-point comparison about what is the same and what is different. And unfortunately, when you do this, when you write out all the TRF features and you never say whether it's same or different from the mangrove, you just TRF, write half a page on TRF, and then you mangrove, and then you write half a page on mangrove, you will not get any marks at all because you are not doing the important thing, which is to compare similarity and differences point by point. All right, so let me give you some examples of what I mean. Now, I just want to show you this piece of work, which is excellent for the first question. All right, I will name this person. You know who you are. You see your handwriting, you know already. This person did an excellent job. All right, in fact, more students did better in question 1 compared to question 2. All right, now, this student did an excellent job because they did a point-by-point comparison of the similarity and differences. All right, almost my perfect answer. All right, so I will use her answer as an example. Oh, here's a clue. It's a her, right? So tropical rainforests are located along the equator. All right, so this is along the equator. Then she used this word, whereas. All right, so when she used this word, whereas, I already know it's a difference. Whereas, however, but, these are all connecting words which show me that it's a difference. Whereas mangroves are found along the coastline. So very good. All right, it's a point-by-point comparison of a difference of the specific location, the general location of where TRF and mangroves are like. All right, the next point. All right, so next point. Both. Can you see both? Yeah, very good because she used this word both. Something. So when she used this word both, I know it's a similarity. So both are between the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. All right, it's a similarity, very good. All right, and then after that, she compared the differences in the location. So she said tropical rainforest, Amazon rainforest, South America, Congo Basin rainforest, whereas mangroves are concentrated in these areas. All right, which is also a very good attempt. Excellent. All right, so I just want to show you the so-called model answer here. All right, so you can take a look at this answer. My answer is a little bit different from her. So I first started out with similarities. Both of them are located between Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. Both are also concentrated in these areas, Southeast Asia and Central America. However, then I talk about difference, right? Tropical rainforests are concentrated along equator, but mangrove are along coastlines. So the person's work just now, very good. Mine also acceptable. You can pause and rewind or stop here to do your corrections now. Next, second question. Compare how the roots of the tropical rainforest have and mangrove. So they only one roots. So I just want to highlight and emphasize here, students, that they only one roots. I have students talking about leaves. I don't want to know about leaves. I only want roots. So how they have adapted to the environment. All right, so how they have adapted to the environment. So how do I go about doing this? So firstly, of course, all right, so here I will need to have to describe the roots and then say how they help the plant to live in the environment. Okay, very similar to what we did just now in our WA2 practice, right? So I need to describe the roots and tell me how it helped the plant to live in the environment. But this one more difficult because this one you need to find any similarity, the same, or difference, how they are different. Okay, so here is a possible answer. The answer, 3 marks, right? So you must find 3 things to talk about. Okay, so these are my possibilities. This is a similarity. All right, both the trees and in the tropical rainforest and the mangroves have shallow roots which grow above the ground. So this is my description. I describe the roots. They are shallow and they grow above the ground. Okay, so now I have described my roots. I can now say how they help the plant to live in this environment. Okay, I can say how they help the plant to live in the environment. So I can say, oh, tropical rainforest is shallow, right? Because water is available all year around, right? And there's really no need to develop very deep roots. But mangroves, it has shallow root. Yeah, still shallow. They cannot grow above the ground because remember your aerial roots. Why? They need to take in oxygen from the air because of oxygen poor soil. Right? So describe roots and environment. So again, you can listen to the description first, and then listen to the explanation first, and then later you can pause to copy if you need to do your corrections. Okay, so this is one similarity. What about difference? So again, describe in yellow and then help plant to live in environment in green, all right? So a possible difference is that the roots of both forests help to anchor the ground in different ways, right? So it's different ways. Okay, so roots of the emergent trees in the tropical rainforest is large and thick. So here I am describing the tropical rainforest, large and thick. All right, and it helps them to support the heavy weight of the tree. On the other hand, the mangroves is different. They have prop roots, right? They have the prop roots, And what does prop roots do? It helps to anchor the plant in the soil. So they are a little bit different. All right. Now next, another difference is mangrove has salt excluding roots. So that's a description of the root. Why does it help? It prevents salt from entering the roots. How about tropical rainforest? Tropical rainforests do not have salt excluding roots. Why they do not have salt excluding roots? Because there is little salt water in the tropical rainforest. All right, so if you need to write down the correction for this, you can also pause it. All right, remember, corrections must be done. I will check it when I collect your file when you come for your WA2. All the best, work hard, aim for ice cream.